Hi, guys. Welcome and welcome back to the Christian Banter podcast. I'm your host, as always, Shikunjagi, and this is a podcast that talks about conversations as Christians, by Christians, and for Christians, but most importantly, centered around Christ. Now, the most exciting thing about today is that we're going into season 2, episode 1, and I'm so excited about this conversation, guys. And with me, I have a guest or co-host in studio, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
So thank you, Shiko. So good morning, good evening, and a good day to one and all. So my name is Willis Njumbi. I guess by ways of introduction, that qualifies me to have this conversation is I am a Christian. So I think that qualifies me to have the conversation.
Right. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. And season 2 is actually about church hurt, right? This is a topic that most people scatter around. It's a topic that people don't know how do we address this. And there are questions around. I think many people that I've experienced I've talked to who have experienced this are like, I just don't want to talk about it, or people are going to judge me anyway. But I want to hear from your perspective. What does church hurt mean to you? And do you have a point where maybe church didn't feel safe to you? Or have you experienced people who also experienced the same and said, church is not the place for me anymore. I left church, but I didn't leave God.
Oh, no, thanks for that. I think, and maybe even by way of just building context, per occupation, I am in the corporate space and we do work within institutions, and all institutions have their rules and regulations. And so when it comes to the church, you look at it, it's church as an idea is by and large communicated to us as a safe place. Yeah, it's a place where you run to get hope, to get faith, to get help. That's why I think if you're East African by and large and Kenyan, a lot of schools are after churches named, a lot of hospitals. You have Saint this and Saint that. And so it kind of tells you, and that to me is a reflection of what the church represents spiritually as much as some of it I've translated it socially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to church, you tend to feel like the expectation is we're coming into a place where we're safe, a place where you can find hope, a place where you can find answers to problems probably that you were not able to rationally decipher. So when you have a place like this that is heralded and held up as a place where you can come, not at your best, so you tend to go there with a bit of trust and a bit unguarded. Yeah, if not completely unguarded, because it's communicated to us that this is where you find above all else God.
Yeah.
And we've been raised as if you've been raised Kenyan, you've been raised to believe God is good.
Right.
And then Kenyans like say all the time. So you come into this place above all else expecting to meet God.
Right.
And sometimes what you don't anticipate is that you meet people. And now people comes in all shapes and sizes and all varied perspectives. And sometimes we're not ready for people when we're looking for God.
No.
So
yeah. Oh, wow. That's such a beautiful way of placing it, because, I mean, let me take us back to the Bible a bit. So Jesus is the perfect, like Jesus is perfect God, perfect man, right? But even he encounters Pharisees and all those the Pharisees, Sadducees, all those guys, right? And to them, they thought what they were doing was upright because they were following the law of Moses, right? And sometimes we experience, again, like you said, people. But now for them, well, they're not necessarily guarding the law of Moses. They assume their best place to define Christianity for people. And perhaps that's where most people get lost when you come to church. Because I remember when I went to church, I wasn't even that serious. When I said find God again, I was not that serious. I was like, fine, this guy's usually so happy. Let me go find these happy people. Maybe I might enjoy this happiness that they experience. But how many people have gone there and experienced judgment, experienced hurt, and have been unable to go back? And there's this phrase that Kenyans say. They say that it's easier to be welcomed in bars and be welcomed in churches. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, you raise a really good point. I know going back to scripture is a good way to reference the kind of conversation we're having, because and if Christ comes for his bride, assume what you said, like Christ is church and people are coming to find God and coming towards Christ. There's people. Christ had disciples, yeah, and we all know about the 12. As much as we might not be able to name all of them, you have a situation. I like two references to a situation of how people got treated. Yeah,
Right.
you have one of the points of references towards the end where a servant of the Pharisees had come at the point of persecution for Christ, and when they came to pick up Christ, Peter was there, sword ready.
Oh yeah.
So he cut this guy's ears off. Peter was ready for a fight.
Yeah.
So you can see that's a pastor, and you walk into a pastor's ready for a fight.
That's my sister.
Because remember, there were soldiers, but this was a servant of the Pharisees. So this guy was just with a crowd of people, and he checked in, and the first thing that happens is his ear gets cut off. He wasn't ready for a fight. He just he was told, we're going to go get Jesus. He said, okay, where is this the guy is turning his head the wrong way. He wasn't looking right, ear off. So, because if you cut someone's ear, you don't cut it like this. You cut it from the back. So this guy was looking that way, wondering what's going on here. Ear down. Done. So, and you see, in that instance where a servant of the Lord has now punished a seemingly clueless member of the open congregation, and Christ says, do you not think I have an arsenal to call if I needed to really punish these people? And he picks up them, restores, and that has a lot that it can teach, and there's an instance also where you have the sons of Zebedee, two of the apostles, who come back. There's two instances, one where they say, shall we call down fire on these
the sons of thunder, right? Yeah.
And Christ says, you do not know the spirit that you're of. He didn't come to consume and destroy people for their errors and misgivings and mistakes. And so it's for me, it kind of shows you what church needs to be, and kind of shows you that you might find people faithful and loyal in the church, building that agenda and committed to it, that might catch you on a bad day. Catch you on a day where things are not clear. So for me, what church looks like is when you've come into this institution and you're looking for that hope, you're looking for that peace, you're looking for that acceptance, and you're looking for God. And then, like I said, you meet people and they don't really qualify you, or they don't really accept you. But even then, and maybe to put a premise to it, you can only truly be hurt, in my view, as a perspective, it's not gospel truth.
Right.
In a couple of instances, one, when you're young and clueless. Two, when you are emotionally young, because you can be old and emotionally young.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then three, when you're invested. Because there's a difference. For instance, if a 19-year-old, 20-year-old is walking the street and a stranger shouts, "You're stupid," that 19, 20-year-old won't bother having a very long, protracted conversation with this stranger. They'll probably just avoid them and move on.
Yeah, I'll probably call you crazy.
Yeah, I'd be like, that's a madman. So they'll allocate it to them as an opinion.
Yeah.
That's their own.
100%.
But if they were home and your dad or your mom calls you stupid, that hits different.
Oh no, I'm gonna think about it for the rest of my life. I'm like, am I really? Do you think I'm probably stupid, aren't I?
Yeah, so it just takes you down a rabbit hole that could, and I know the word might be a bit misused, but it's because the generational separations on the qualification of the word trauma.
Oh yeah.
But for lack of a better word, words can injure. And it'll hurt more coming from a parent than it will from a stranger. And so when you come into this place and you're in your raw form and you're looking for hope and you're looking for help, and you have a misstep and you're God's marked, and you are insulted or rejected, it can feel some type of, it can feel like it was a lie,
right.
And I think for me, one of the things as an insight to share is, by and large, when you walk into Christendom and you're walking into salvation, or the process of salvation, because by and large, if you're Kenyan, you've received Christ at least once before you were 10 years old.
Sure.
Between the crusades and the TV shows and at home and the pastors on Sunday.
Yeah.
So but sometimes you come back in your present, or it's a more conscious mind, and you say, I want to go back to church. I want to understand this institution. I want to be better. Most people come to church to be better. That's one of the defining things. You come because you believe this is a place I can plug in and become better. So to come in like that, it doesn't leave a lot of room for error. Until fairly recently, in my supposition, it's been a situation where once you're in the fold, act like this, do like this, be like this, and as you grow that space, if you have a misstep, we used to say it is only the Christian army that kills their fallen.
Yeah.
So you have someone who a mistake is made or a choice that is on a negative spectrum of things is made, and it might fall even into the public light, and the immediate response is rejection. Is don't poison the rest of the congregation, get out, get lost.
You gotta go.
And so that can be really damning for someone who was looking for hope, and the last resort they had was this place. Because what else does it leave you? Because at that point, maybe you couldn't find it at home, maybe you couldn't find it in friends. So it just leaves a darkness, because like you said a moment ago, the bar and the other places are very welcoming.
Oh yeah.
The seats are always ready. The strangers become friends and become family.
Yeah.
But here, it's you misstepped, now get out.
You need to leave.
It's you're bad for us. And suffice it to say, I'm no stranger to that experience.
Right.
It's in previous days, many years. If I mention the number of years, I probably give myself age.
Okay.
My age away.
So
but
we're not that, but we're very safe.
but I do celebrate my age, and I look forward to a very fruitful, very satisfying life.
Right.
And in this instance, it was one of those places where you come into the institution of the church, and you come in because you're looking to be better.
Right.
And as you go along, you have a misstep, and the misstep becomes for lack of a better word, public knowledge, because you're in this space and people are a small community, so they get to understand, okay, this person had a misstep at this. And at that point, the misstep becomes such that I remember, so I was absent from the church just maybe for a bit as we rectify things. And the pain for me came when a friend of mine told me, yo, Willis, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. Why?
Yeah.
It's like, let me just tell you, if there was a sermon preached, and if anyone knew you, they would know it was your misstep. Then I was like, oh, look, it's all good. I don't fault it. It's true, I did fall, but thank God for it says a righteous man may fall so many times, but he rises again. And I was like,
man perishes.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, look, no, I appreciate that. And so the question comes: do you go back? Do you go back to the place where you've become a bad example in a good sermon? No. Do you go?
I'm like, that's my story right there you're using, Yeah.
So suffice it to say, unfortunately, I had read writings of that testified of people like David and people like Jacob, and I was like, yeah, just give up is not in my DNA. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be up there. And I was there, front row and center. I was like, I'm ready to be excommunicated. I'm ready to be kicked out. I'm good. I'm here. I'm not advocating for a repeat performance of any of my missteps to any congregation member, but I'm saying I know this is the only place I can get help. So I am here. And I remember having to sit in that environment where sometimes you feel like, there's now a bit of distancing from you, because you're like, oh, yo, we don't want any of that on us.
It's contagious.
Yeah, it's just, and he's let back in. What's going on? So, but suffice it to say, for me, I then understood that as much as the church is a place of sanctuary, which it should be, we said as much as there is God, there's also people. And as much as you expect grace and comfort from church, know that there are people and that they are human. That's why the word says, know ye no man by the flesh, but discern each one by the Spirit. And so extend the patience and grace that you'd expect to get from them, extend to them.
100%.
Allow them to make a mistake in prejudging you. Allow them to make that mistake. Allow them to have that fault.
Come again. What?
Just allow them to make that mistake. Allow them to make that negative judgment. Allow them to make that call, and let them be wrong. Because at the end of the day, there was a lot that was said about Christ. Everything from you cast out demons in the name of demons.
100%. Beelzebub,
he was not exempt. Incidentally, let me tell you, there are people who try to insult Christ, and the insult is, it's written in such a way that you cannot exactly see it, but if you pay attention, you'll see it. There's a section in the New Testament Bible, and I apologize for not quoting direct. I leave you as experts to reference in and put on there. What's it called? The subtext.
Yeah. The subtitles, yeah.
But so what happens was, Jesus was facing Pharisees, and he was giving testimony and talking about children of Abraham and this. And the Pharisees responded to one of his conversations and said, "But we are not born of fornication. We are the descendants of Abraham." He said, "We are not born of fornication, neither are we born of immorality or sin." And if you understood what they were saying, they were making, remember, these are the same people who said, is this not Jesus? Are his brothers not with us? Is his mother not with us? Do we not know his father?
Yeah.
What they were saying is, we know your mom was pregnant before he married your dad. No, so we know, he was going to divorce your mother. So he was trying to just say, you know what, we know you. It's that they say, know what you're coming from. So why are you acting like this? And Christ let it slide. This is the guy who could have destroyed people, because the guys who came to get him and asked him where is Christ said, I am here, and they fell. So, and he let it slide. And so you need to understand, there are people who will do that to you. There are people who will find a point of fault in your life and use it as a permanent reference for you. And this is the thing, it's not for everyone to accept you. You need to understand, you stay in church not because the people accept you. You stay because God accepts you and you get fed. Because you're supposed to be in this place to get better and improve and get stronger. And what does the Bible say? The Bible says the path of the righteous like the breaking of day that gets brighter and brighter unto the perfect day. So this is a place for growth. And so just to summarize is to say, I have been in that space where you are the one who's made a mistake. You're come a bad example in a good sermon, and people are kind of, moving, giving you a bit more distance, and you realize, was I here for the people or God? And do I understand that these are still people, and I need to extend grace? Because if your value in people is greater than your value for God, then you will really feel more pain than you're supposed to at the actions of people.
Right.
So, because God hasn't rejected you, God has offered you mercy and forgiveness. Hinge on that, in my perspective.
Wow. And when I listen to you, I'm immediately thinking how contrary of it for us to, first of all, sit on the seat of judgment, because Christ himself expects us to go to him, even if our sin is as red as crimson. But as a Christian, I'm very quick to judge a fellow Christian instead of thinking, how can I pray with you? How can I walk with you? Or who do I need to lead you to? So it becomes quite unfortunate. I think sometimes, again, the people in church mishandle people. They mishandle, and I'm not generalizing, I'm just saying instances where this has happened, right? So for example, I think I remember there's a friend of mine who came to me and said, hey, so I went to a certain pastor and told them I'm struggling with this and this. Boom, next sermon, I am the main topic, yeah? So like you said, bad example is a good sermon. And so you cannot convince that person that they need to share next time. It's as simple as that. You've closed that off for them. They will never share their struggles. They will encourage their friends to not share their struggles as well. Because I don't want to be a bad example again. I think I'm going to be misusing that line. I really like it. But my question is, and I know we'll discuss this more in episode 2, but how do you then navigate this? So these fellows are judging you. You have allowed them that, which I believe that's another level of grace, which can only come from Christ. And it ties into what, there's a someone I learned the other day about unforgiveness. And it's a guy called John Bevere. He was talking about the bait of Satan, which is unforgiveness. And he says, every time you don't forgive somebody, you're putting Christ back on the cross and calling him a liar. Because if he forgave you, then it means, and you cannot forgive someone else, then it means you're putting Christ. You don't believe he died for you, right? So similarly, the way you're saying you have given room for these people to sit on that seat of judgment, as painful as it is, I then wonder, how do you navigate that afterwards? Do you look at these people the same? Do you pray for them? Did you go back to church? How has your life been? Like, have you been able to navigate that?
And I think just borrowing from what you said, like I said, when the struggles become the sermon, or when the misstep becomes the sermon, or the failure or the falling, there are instances where people actually even excommunicated. And one of my heroes is an older lady. She's going to be with the Lord, but she's been involved in ministry in many ways, shapes, or form. The old school kind, the people who had Bible studies in their homes on weekdays and contributed to church buildings. And this lady had quite the life outcome. So she, at the end of her life, she was a Pentecostal, but she was born Catholic. So she was born Catholic, and one of the reasons she's one of my heroes when it comes to this particular subject is in her youth, these were teenagers introduced. So we're talking about like the 70s. She was betrothed to be married, and back in those days, if you understand, our societies were built around a lot of tradition.
Right.
Formality and formal education had not come to the place, but the church was coming up. And so, as other things were garnered and covered, when she was it happened that in the course of life, before she had taken the sacraments of church.
Yeah. Or the ones that do up to the final.
Yeah, because you have like 5 sacraments in the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
and so every church had sacraments of the sort. What happened to her was she got widowed pretty early in her 20s, and she got widowed with a child. And so as she was widowed with a child, she of course was very broken. This is not like these days where we have such a heavy social outlook on things. Those days the population of Kenya was like 4-5 million. It's very few people in very few places. And so something like this is a tragedy for a young person. It's like, hey, what's
a lot? It's a scandal. It's a top of town.
And in fact, if your husband dies, it's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, what did you do?
God has come against you in a big way, and then with a child. So what ended up happening was, and the child was infant actually. The child hadn't been born. So the child was born after the dad has died. And when the child was old enough, she went to the child to church to receive a blessing, receive sacrament. Because that was the tradition of the churches back then and all the congregations that existed.
Yeah.
And the church at that point turned away. They said, you're an unwed mother. We cannot.
Really?
Yeah.
But my husband just.
Oh, it's so sad. Let's tell you meet people.
Oh no, yeah, you meet.
You meet. So, because you need to understand, we in those days, in those decades, single mothers were not viewed as they are viewed now as heroines and champions. Yeah. They were a strange thing.
Their partners.
They're supposed to disappear into the corners of society and never be shown, never be seen. This was the eras where such children were hidden away, and you pretended you didn't have a child, and you got remarried, and 30 years later, there's a grown-up who showed up. He said, oh, this one was, So, but this lady was trying to, because she knew the church, she was trying to have the child at least have the covering of the church. And when she was rejected, she was broken, But long story short, she overcame that. And I don't know if you understand the level of pain to be at your most vulnerable place and holding a child in your hand who's an infant and asking for the salvation of their soul, and then to be told it's not possible, go away.
Because you don't have a husband.
Because you don't have
a relationship with Christ has been reduced to having a partner or lack thereof.
And I'm not knocking the family unit because it's important, but I'm saying that's the Bible says true religion is this, that you care for the orphans and the widows. And so this person is looking for the salvation of their child. And if you had a mother at her child, she has every right to never go that way again, But when this woman finds the courage to plug back into ministry in her later years and give back and become a force in helping out and contributions, for me, that just sets the tone. It just sets the tone of what kind of person that would look to be like. And so even when I look at the question you asked, and I might have lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Is to say that even in this happening, when the church hurts you, what your response becomes is understanding the separation between God and man.
Right.
That God is there. He has not rejected you. He has not refused you because he said the work is finished. And if there's something that could not be resolved by God, he would have said, all is finished, but if you commit this one, no, don't come back.
It's that.
But he never did. He said love covers over all sin. So him is giving you the guarantee. He says, come boldly the throne of grace. If you fall, come and receive mercy. And so he is not changing. So if the people that are administrating then mishandle you or give you a certain way, if they reject you, don't give up
on God.
Don't give up on God for the sake of people.
Right.
You have to make this distinct separation. And concerning the people, you see, people, you need to understand, you need to have, my perspective is, have boundaries around how much people affect you and how much they affect the decisions you make in your life. In the sense that, we came now, the next generation comes, and the previous one generation came into the Pentecostal space where there was a lot of calling the pastor dad and calling the pastor's wife mom, and if you're brought up, and I'm not mocking it,
and it just came out. Sorry, just go on.
Oh, so I for someone like me who wasn't very gospel institutionalized when I was young, and I would look at these scenarios, I would wonder, that's a lot to put on someone.
Yeah.
That's because when you
Such a
say that,
burden.
Mom, this someone was fed you, was clothed you, was sheltered you, was taking care of you at your weakest and most vulnerable. So you're really qualifying that person at that extent. And they should say, wow, that's a lot to put on someone who you have met in your later stages in life. Because you need to understand, a child, a human child, for the first 5 years of their life or so, are completely dependent on their parent to be fed, to be clothed, to be protected against disease, against attack, against everything.
Yeah.
Basically, if you put an infant out in the cold by themselves, they die.
Yeah.
And so
they need a parent.
Exactly. So what a parent has done for you is very difficult to quantify, because they have made sure you are alive.
I mean, also the expectations that you place on that person.
There you go.
They can never afford to fail you. Because right now, I don't think you would even question your mom. Like, my mom's cooking is perfect. What do you mean? So you're placing that burden on someone who's also figuring their life out with Christ.
There you go. Because remember, a lot of these people are in that. If Peter, who has been working with Christ, near the end of Christ's ministry, is cutting people's ears off. What makes you think this person has everything figured out? They're still in the process, and as they all get older, they'll get better. But you just might find them at their most zealous. So what happens is it goes two ways. That's a very high mantle to put on someone, and it's very heavy expectation to others, because they let you down even in their own failing. You will be so destroyed, you might give up the entire circumstance, situation of church. So it's only fair that when you see these people, that you extend that grace, that you understand, who are these people to me? What are the boundaries around them? How do I relate to these people? How much do they affect in the decisions I make in my life?
Right.
Because at the core of the decisions you make in your life, ideally would be, as a Christian, would be God. You say, this is based on what God's word says, and this is what God's life, my outcome in God, my life looks like, and that's fine. Then you have the significant influences. If you're old enough, you have spousal influence, then you have parental influence, then you have a sibling influence, then you have your relative influence, then you have your social circle influence. But all those are going further and further, And so setting boundaries around these people, because they have hurt you, you've not given up church, you're still going to be around these people. It is important to set boundaries, so that you say, okay, what we do is I take them up until at this level. And in corporate, like, say, trust but verify, because they might give you a perspective on the word. If that's a responsibility, take it and verify. Even the Bible talks about the Bereans, when they said when the gospel was given to them, they went back and searched the scriptures. They're like, okay, let's see if this thing is true.
What can we question?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Even God says it is for God to conceal a matter. It is for kings to find it out. So take on your own royal mantle, go in and just dig deep and find this truth. And so hinge on the truth. Give grace to people. They're also in the process. I think we forget that a lot. We think these guys have figured it all out. They should be perfect in their conduct and outcome. And so when they injure us, we throw out the baby with the basket. We say,
everything.
Baby and bathwater out the window.
Everybody go.
Everything goes. But this church was a lie. I should have known.
He should have known God is not real. Oh my word.
Yes.
What a beautiful way to conclude our first episode. And I think we'll be delving further about, leaving church and not God, because that's exactly how you finished your sentiments, right? And I remember that's one of the prayers that I make to God every day. Teach me to know you, not through man, because even Paul says, follow me as much as I follow Christ. So to the extent that that person does not follow Christ, then you should not follow them to that end.
Yeah.
So I think most times we put people on the pedestal of Christ instead of putting Christ in his own, kingdom and where he is supposed to be. Thank you so much, Willis, for episode 1.
Thank
We
you.
will delve further in this conversation. Personally, I've really enjoyed this. I mean, I literally the conversation just flew. Like, I just didn't realize when we were going on and on and on. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. This was season 2, episode 1, Church Heart, where we'll be having these conversations through and through. And we look forward to having you watch, comment, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and also follow us on our social media platforms. We would like to hear your thoughts. Bye.